little sloppiness is a good thing. Growing up, my dad always says, "差不多就可以了," which means just good enough. No need for perfection. And one friend said, "That's a bad thing. Got to teach your kids perfection." And I said, "No, that's a good thing. That's life." Going back to the story of expansion. Remember watching this reality TV show about, people selling high-end cars, living in LA, drama, blah, blah, blah. Well, they want to expand her business. She's really good at what she does. People love her. But she needs more help if she wants to have more customers. Can't do it all herself. So she interviews people, and there's this horrendous. No way she's going to hire those people. Don't show up on time, sloppy, not paying attention during a video interview. No way. So she asked somebody she's delivering cars to, a guy who's made it successfully, startup, CEO, blah, blah, blah. How do you find good help? Looked at her with his funny look, like, you just get help. That's why you need to expand. End of conversation. No more to be discussed. What does he mean by that? So if you translate it into the idea of help, right, then it gets a little bit complicated. But let me just do it more simply to yourself, to myself. Some people are perfectionists. They like to do something well. Not just well, excellently. Not just excellently, superbly. Not just superbly, perfectly. And let me give you some examples of why that doesn't work in real life. There's one guy who worked at a fast food place. He took his job seriously. It was one of those counter serve places, but he'd spend 10 minutes with the customer, going over the options, telling them what he recommended, asking them what they liked, really giving them the best service. When he's assigned bathroom duty, he'll spend half an hour making sure that bathroom is spick and span. And do you think his bosses loved him for that? I would say, of course not. You're at a fast food place. You gotta turn through your customers. We're not a fine dining establishment. You don't have time to spend 10, not even 5 minutes with one customer at the till. You just get them in and out. One question, max. Clean the bathroom? Come on. Again, what do you think we are? Mission starred? Is there an inspector coming by to check the bathroom? Just making sure it's not too dirty. Pass the health inspection. No need to spend half an hour cleaning every single spot, because that's time you're not in the front, time you're not in the back, time you're not spent doing other stuff that's actually important too. So my conclusion was he doesn't understand what's important or not. And that's why he has a hard time keeping jobs. Not that he's a perfectionist. But going into it from more knowledge, I realized, wait a minute, that's actually not the complete story. The real issue is he doesn't know how to do a job. See, we all understand there's time constraints. When I say we, I mean, I think some people understand. And the thing is, engineers are always told you can't have all three. You want, speed as in finishing a project on time. You want cost, how much money is spent, and you want quality of work. Choose two, right? It's always these cases you can't have everything you want. So you gotta cut some edges. That's just life. That's why you're not the boss, right? Because if you're the boss, we wouldn't be making any money. But here's the deal. It's not just engineers have to deal with this. Everybody has to deal with it, right? If I have a patient and I want to read up on a patient, I can't spend an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours reading up on a patient. They may be super complicated. They may have lots of stuff going on. I may need to learn a lot of stuff, but practically speaking, I got to see patients. I can't see one patient per day. That's not going to work out in any field. You got to see more. So sometimes you don't know everything and you walk in the room. Sometimes you don't understand all that's been going on and you walk in a room. But that's just life, right? So for work, I think most of us get it because you just can't do everything. You can't be perfect in everything you do, right? Those are the exceptions of people who are superb in everything they do. The majority of us, we just do a good enough job for most of what we do. Again, that's life. That's work. But what about with yourself? With your own life? There's some people who want to have a perfect house and they spend a lot of money, and sure, that's fine. It's their hobby. They like doing that. But at what point does it become counterproductive and limit what you actually do? Remember, I had a friend who commented that, he spent a long time researching which backpack to get for this trip, or a sleeping bag, or something like that. As in, probably 20 hours of time spent researching, looking over all these sites, reading reviews. Is that ridiculous or is that not? So I guess if you like doing it, and if you go on trips every now and then, you could afford to have time. But what if you're going on trips every week? Can you do that? And that's where I find myself. I love doing this stuff versus like compelled versus it's really hard to tell the difference nowadays between what a compulsion is and what an interest is, right? Compulsion is something you feel uncomfortable if you don't do. You feel the need to do it, and after you do it, you feel relieved. Interest is supposed to be something you enjoy, but do we enjoy making ourselves feel not uncomfortable? I would say we do. So I spend a lot of time doing research to plan trips well. Sometimes it's not the end of the world. It's little amounts of money, but I want to get the best deal. I want to maximize. I want to do all these things, collect my points. So it takes a lot of time for me to plan trips. And the issue is I have a lot of trips to plan because I travel a lot. Maybe I should just stop spending so much time planning and just say, good enough, right? Has it ever been that in a trip I said, I wish I did more planning? I don't think so. I think that's generally true for me in personal life. At work, I understand most people do. You need to keep a job. You need to get to the chase, get working. Your supervisor could care less that you did an excellent job with the one patient when you're supposed to have seen 8 that day. By speaking, I don't want to stay late, unpaid, so I finish my work. A lot of reasons that work why it works out. I'm not that way at work. But personally, let's see. Uh, so many options. How do I figure out which is the best? The problem is the weather's hard to predict in another few weeks. So is Jordan really going to be rainy? How do I know? What if it's good weather? Someone said that, Mexico City is not good to go to when it's actually not raining because it's too polluted. When I read about it, there's also this idea that there's certain more times when there's more pollution than other times, right? So maybe it's still fine when it's not raining in the winter, because summer is when it's really bad, right? When all the smog is in the air. See, there's so many things you just can't predict, just can't know. There are certain things that you can figure out with extensive uses of time. But that's a lot of time. Is time valuable? Is the goal to be more productive, to do more? Or is the goal to do more stuff well? I remember reading this book called Masters and I forgot what the other term was called. But talking about artists. Some are wonderful to start with, and they sort of go down over time. They come out with a bang, inspirational, change our world, and then they linger around and they're still alive, but nobody really knows them anymore. Some improve over time. Some produce lots of art. Some produce very few. There's some who just work on the same painting over and over and over and over. Or on the same scene over and over and over and over. They have different styles. And then he viewed it as a thing about, value. How much is this piece worth to say whether or not they're good at this point or that, right? But the point for me is, what do you do about your own time? How do you choose?